Alright everybody, welcome back. This is my second attempt at trying to record a video on this. I had picked up this Canon Auto Zoom 814 electronic for $10 at a flea market because it wasn't working, it was dead. So, reason being is it had 30-year-old corrosion in the battery handle. So, I figured I'd give it a try, see if I can't fix it and bring it back up to scratch, because on eBay these things are going for, you know, between like 250 and 400 bucks, sometimes up to 600. Apparently they're pretty good, so I wanted to see if I can get this thing running like a top. So to do that, I gotta take off the handle, and like I said, I tried to record this once already, which means everything's put back together. But that's okay, that just means I can show you guys how to take the batteries out of a Canon Auto Zoom. So, we'll start by doing that, taking the batteries out. Now, I don't particularly care for this this style of battery cover with the little coin screw. I hate them. I'd rather just have a clasp or like a knurled knob. But take what you can get, I suppose. All right. Come on. Give me that last one. Wants to fight me. Okay. There it is. All right. Sorry for the lighting in here. It's kind of... Maybe I can fix that a little bit. Or maybe it'll just make it worse. Okay. That may have just made it worse. We'll deal with it. Alright, so first thing we gotta do, we gotta take off this cover, which means we need a little bitty flathead screwdriver. On the side of this release handle, or this release lever, there's two set screws. So we're gonna take out, or we're not gonna take them out, we're just gonna loosen them. By a few turns, and that should loosen it up. Kind of pry this up and off, and if not, just loosen them a couple more turns. You don't really need to take out these screws. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to need to take off this little plastic trigger guard here. So you need to carefully peel back this little rubber bottom. As you can see, I've already done that. So there's going to be a total of 6 screws under here, but we only need to get the 2 frontmost flathead screws. So come on. Had a magnet, that'd be great, but all I got is this magnetic screw head, which kind of works, kind of doesn't. So there you go. All right, so there's those two, and then this little plastic part just pulls straight forward and straight out, which by doing so exposes one of these little flathead screws there. But we're gonna keep with the Phillips head for now and take off these 2 cover screws right under the badge. These are pretty long. Now, I'm not a camera expert by any stretch of the imagination. Whoop. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to the actual mechanics of a camera, but when it comes to electronics, I'm somewhat competent, I say, as I drop a screw. That will be fine, so hold please. Found it. Okay. These little bastards. I don't want to lose any of them. I had to put on my headlamp to try to find it. I don't know if that makes the video easier to see with the shadows. Maybe not. I don't like wearing it, so I'm going to take it off. Anyway, so we got those two screws out. There's two left. One Phillips head on the top here. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily required to remove, but I do because it tends to make things a little easier. Now I gotta flip back to a flathead, and we're gonna take out this bottom screw down here. And this one's kind of a weird looking screw too. It's almost like a half dowel pin, half screw. See, it's got, I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but it's pretty obvious where that one goes when you're trying to put this back together. And now you just kind of pull off your cover. And in here is your handle mechanism. So this is your release lever. You got to take off this pulley. Now, it was not terribly tight when I first got it. Sometimes they can be incredibly tight. So I'm told anyway. You can use a spanner wrench in the holes. If you use pliers, just be careful. You don't want to mar anything up. And if it's really fighting you, you can loosen these two set screws on top. But now under here is going to be a washer. So you're going to want to keep both the screw and the washer. And then your handle just lifts out like that. So we'll set the camera aside for now. And carefully peeling off the rubber. I haven't re-glued it, so it's pretty easy for me to peel off. Now we're going to go back to a Phillips head and take apart our battery compartment, because that's where our problem was. There's going to be 4 screws holding this one together. Now, as was the case with mine, quit dropping those, me. As was the case with mine, the batteries were pretty much exploded in here, so I cleaned up most of this, but it's still not 100%. Anyway, as you can see from all the dust. So there's basically just caked in corrosion in there. So you need to get yourself some terminal cleaner to kind of loosen it up. I spent a good few hours cleaning that, at least until I can get a solid contact on this little springy bit. Now on the other end of that, so this one would be fitting right here, this contact was just completely borked. I tried to clean it up, but it's just got too much resistance for it to actually make the camera last. It was a good effort, but in vain ultimately. So I went out and I grabbed this little shitty LED motion light, yanked out the terminals from that to be a donor for this one. So there was a little screw holding this down, and on the old one there's a little screw hole in there, and I just measured up where that screw hole was, drilled a hole, and used the original screw to kind of hold that in place. It's looking a little bit loose, so maybe I should tighten that down some. And then, as you can see, I cleaned up most of the corrosion in there, and that's about it. So this is your negative contact for the batteries, and this is your positive contact. So power comes through that, goes down across the other, so it comes down 2 batteries, goes across, comes back up 2 batteries, and then out this little wiper here. So I want to make sure not only is this little springy, I don't know if I was in frame, gotta make sure not only is this little springy tab clean and bouncy, but in here, this is where that wiper runs across. So when your handle is closed or open, it'll still work. So that's what contacts on that little springy bit down there. It contacts this little, I don't know, quarter turn section of metal. Now when I got this, it was full of dust and old grease and grime. Took a while to clean that out. So any little bit you can do to tidy this thing up. I mean, these aren't invincible. They're not going to last forever. The capacitors in here are probably on their way out within, I don't know. Hopefully I can get like a good decade of service out of it. We'll see. There's companies that refurbish these, but I just wanted something that I could shoot some Super 8 with that wasn't going to break the bank. And when I found this for 10 bucks and all I had was bad battery terminals, I thought, yeah, why not? I'll give it a try. See if I can't breathe some new life into it. So we're going to put this battery terminal back together now. And sorry if I'm shaky, I get that way after I have a bit too much caffeine. But, you know, everyone does. Did I say that already? And also, you'll notice I'm wearing gloves. I typically don't wear gloves in my videos, but sometimes you'll see me with it. And it's not because I'm concerned about my safety or anything like that. It's because I work with my hands a lot, and sometimes I get nasty blood blisters under the fingernails, and it's very unattractive. So when you see me wearing gloves, that's why. Alright, so we've got our 4 screws in. We're gonna make sure everything's nice and springy and clean. Drop that back on. Take our washer. Take our washer with our screw and put that in place to hold our handle on. Now this wasn't too tight when I first got it, so I'm just gonna crank it down hand tight as hard as I can go, and that should be good enough. All right, next part we're gonna want to put on this little top cover. So has a little lip that slides under there. That's why I wasn't sure if that removing that screw was necessary, but I'll do it anyway. All right, now the fun part of just finding out which screws go where. Now, the 2 up here are Phillips, and these are fairly long screws. You know what? There's something I was going to show you. Before you get this far, it's a good idea to test my patience by dropping screws on the floor. We're going to test battery terminals on here just to make sure everything is working fine. If I can get this damn thing off. There we go. So I'm gonna put some batteries in here and make sure this works before I get carried away putting my camera back together. So put that in that way, then in that way. Positive down, positive down. Now this was the other half of my battery compartment. You can see all the corrosion that was there. I just hot glued a piece of metal in there because that's all it really is. It's just a piece of metal that connects the contacts from one battery to another. So I tried to clean out the corrosion, then I gave up on it, and I was gonna pull it out, but I figured I might split the cap if I do that. So I just figured, to hell with it, I'll just hot glue another piece of metal in there that'll do the job. So here we go. Now, we got 4 batteries at 1.5 volts each. So that means we should have 6 volts total. So we're gonna look on the multimeter. I don't know how well it's gonna come through on the video. We're gonna try to get the needle to be somewhere about there. Trying to make this so you guys can see too, but all right, so we want the needle to jump somewhere right about there. So, because there's 5 volts, there's 10 volts. So let's see. We got our ground and our positive. Bam, look at that. 6 volts exactly. Couldn't ask for more than that. So we're not losing very much in resistance. So now we're gonna slip this back on. Grab our washer and our screw. And then we're gonna test it on the camera. So if everything's working, we'll know before we try to reassemble the whole thing. All right, so let's set this to run and check our battery compartment and see if the needle moves. Oh yeah. Yep, that's quite vigorous. And it jumps right in there to the blue. Cool. So now we're gonna see how she purrs. Oh, you love to see it. Oh, that's run lock. I'm burning through all my ectochrome. That's what I put in here. Check the lens. Turn this back on. Telephoto. Excellent. Okay, so I know the thing works. Now we're gonna put this all back together. Start by getting this cover. If I can finish this without dropping another damn screw, I'll be happy. back to our flathead. Put in this goofy dowel pin looking screw. And really, everything is kind of screwing into plastic. Don't go tight on it. Just until you feel it snug up, call it there. And we got our little trigger guard, or trigger cover, whatever you want to call it. And just kind of pushes down into place. And this one is back to Phillips. Now, if you're really confident in your abilities, you can go ahead and glue down these rubber flaps when you're done and glue the handle material back on. I'm not unconfident in my abilities. I'm fairly confident it's going to work, but just to be sure, I'm going to leave everything unglued just in case I have to get back in here for anything. So the last little bit. Press on our handle release, and this takes a little itty bitty flathead. We're going to snug down that set screw. And on the other side. And we should have a working camera again. Now, I'll give it about a week of use, maybe a month or so, and if I'm sure that it's fixed and I'm not going to have any more battery issues, I'll glue up everything. But for now, I'm just going to use this computer cable tie, kind of just a Velcro tie to hold it on. These are pretty great cameras. Excuse me, pretty great cameras. I've used it, I don't know. It came with this roll of Kodachrome. I burned through it, just kind of testing it and seeing how the battery terminal holds up. I didn't really do a solid repair when I first got it. It was more of just like a proof of concept to see if I can get it to run, see if there's any other hidden issues with it. So I just kind of jumped the contacts with most of it to bypass all the corrosion. And it worked. So when I decided, you know what, all right, I'm going to get some new springs and contacts and just give it a proper workover and see if we can't make this thing run like a top. And I'm pretty happy with it. So, yeah. If you guys have any questions, I'm probably not the guy to ask because, like I said, I don't know shit about camera repair, much less, you know, Super 8 and 8mm and things like that. But I'm a firm believer in if something's broken, give it a try. You know, if something you have is damaged or isn't going to work, instead of throwing it away, just try to repair it. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to break it. It's already broken. Who cares? But you're going to break a lot of stuff when you're first learning, and then after a while, you're going to stop breaking things. You're going to notice patterns on how things work, going anywhere from like dishwashers to dryers to cameras. So, especially if you're a man, you kind of have a moral duty to attempt to repair. It doesn't even have to work. You just have to attempt to repair. But that's just in my perspective. So on that, I will see you guys in the next one. Adios.